People with home security cameras, what's the creepiest thing you've ever seen happen while you were asleep? I installed some security cameras after some altercations with a horrible neighbor. Most I'd see was a squirrel, maybe a raccoon or two. Saw a fox once. That was cool. One night, I saw a guy walking up and down the street, passing my house over and over again. He seemed to limp more and more with each pass, before he collapsed. Later found out that guy was on a massive drug trip, and he died there. On the sidewalk. In front of my house. There was blood on that patch for weeks. A couple who would drive by at random hours of the day for a full week, would walk up to the house and look at my dogs, pit bulls. Look into each window in the front and even check the back gate/fence. The camera was older and had no notifications, so the only way we knew was the moment they decided to open up the door, while I was homesick, and were subsequently rushed by my dogs. I heard the commotion and grabbed the only weapon I had, a bat, to find the front door open and what looked like a murder scene in my living room. Blood. Everywhere. All over the floor, the front door, the little entranceway, the window. Turns out I have two very good and the idiots went to the hospital to eventually be caught by police. They were going to take my dogs to be in dog fights. Involved in a bunch of other seedy things, drugs, prostitution. I wake up at 6 a.m. and just go through my security camera before heading to work. One day while looking through, I just saw my dog staring directly at my room. Skimmed through the different timelines. He did that for 30 minutes. Not sure why. We bought a new house about 8 months ago, and installed security cameras recently. I looked over footage to see if it was working properly and didn't want to believe what I found. At around 3 a.m. there was a random guy that was briskly walking in and out of my driveway, and kept shifting around. He looked as if he needed to find something. He goes over to one of the bushes on the side, it represents the barrier line, and takes a shit. A fucking shit. I had to replay it a couple times to make sure I was seeing this correctly. Then I thought, is that thing still there? Turns out it was still in the shrub. Guess it was his housewarming gift. I saw someone break into my car, take my sweater out of the front seat, stood there and smelled it for a solid 5 to 10 minutes. Then put it back and left. I gave that sweater away that day. When I was a poor college student, my wealthy cousin and his wife went on vacation and offered to let me house sit to give me a break from my 3 slovenly roommates. They live a few towns over in a very nice house with a huge front lawn and a fancy, tall iron fence and double gates. The fence and gates are about 11 feet high. You have to have a remote to open the gates. That first night I slept so well. I breakfasted like a king and then drove to school. I got back around 5, made a supper fit for a king, and settled down to write an econ paper. My cousin has a warning system for when someone drives, turns off the road and comes up to the gate. There's a chiming sound and you can look at screens in a couple of different rooms to see who it is so that you can buzz them in. I was deep into my paper when I heard the chime. I was confused at first and checked my phone before I realized what it was. I looked from the sofa and could see a movement on the security screen. I stood up and got closer and had a clear view of 2 women getting out of a white car. One tried to squeeze between 2 bars of the gate, impossible, and then the other woman tried to boost her over the top of the gate, hilarious. The top one fell and even from the house I could heard swearing. I was about to press the intercom button and ask WTF was their problem, but I was chuckling at their antics and so just watched silently. They peered at the house intently from between the bars like a couple of jailbirds for a while. The skinnier one actually stripped down to her bra and panties and tried to squeeze through the bars again. No dice. Button boobs were not allowing that to happen. More swearing. Then as the skinny one got dressed again, the bigger one went back to her trunk and got out a fucking tire iron. As soon as she started fucking with the hinges of the gate I was on 911. The cops took too long and the women left. I showed the cops the video but they couldn't get a license plate number. When my cousin and his wife returned the next week I told them what happened and we watched the tape. He said that he had no idea who the women were but his wife looked pissed. I packed up, thanked them for my vacation and left. She divorced him that summer. I saw this one video of some guy in California that went to this house and spent 2 hours licking their security camera/doorbell, disappeared for a bit and then came back to resume the licking of the camera for another hour or so. So I'm sitting in my living room at night, just recently moved into my new flat. I'm in a basement flat, own entrance, in a little townhouse on the edge of town. Quiet area, lots of trees, Cheap rent and like no public transport or cell reception. I'm living alone for the first time. I just set up the security cameras and hooked them up to a new monitor. The old one was ancient and gigantic. Hadn't figured out where to put the monitor. I'd never had a security system before. It was, at the time, on my work desk, which was at the living room window. I noticed this slight yellow glow out the window out the corner of my eyes, slowly getting brighter. As it does, I notice on the camera that there's a huge ass shadow cast across my door, visible from camera, to the left of the window, that looks kinda animal but weird proportions. I quietly shit myself. It sits there for a while, like a good 10 minutes, moving just enough to make me wonder if I'm imagining it moving. There's a kind of whining/buzzing noise, but it's faint and I might be imagining it. I suddenly find religion. Then all of a sudden there's a loud pop from inside my building, the glow goes instantly away, there's a sound like a really pissed cat and then really rapid footsteps. I'm in like full cardiac arrest at this point, bathing in my own urine, crying for my mom. Flash forward a week or so, I haven't been eaten by a cat shadow monster, though I do have a sudden new interest in exorcisms. I meet the upstairs neighbors, older couple, when they're having trouble getting a large package up the stairs. They offer me tea as thanks. I notice their cat sitting in the window. Its movement reminds me of something, and after a while I realize it's the shadow monster. I ask a few questions to round out the details. Turns out the neighbors had one of those lights on a sensor which turn on when they detect movement. Cat jumps up to ledge, light turns on. But it was an eco light, so warmed up slow. It then went out. Loudly. I'm too embarrassed/relieved to recant the story, so I make my excuses, leaving the nice couple upstairs with the impression that their new downstairs neighbor is a weirdo who stares at cats, has a really keen interest in light bulbs, and a predilection for nervous laughter. They don't invite me up for tea anymore, but they do ask if I'm okay every time they see me. I put up a camera in my room to record myself when that was a whole fad. I saw myself kicking and crying in my sleep, legitimate tears and also muttering something. I saw myself reach and grab my hair when I curled into a ball. I don't even remember having a nightmare or anything that night. Definitely a reason to be afraid of myself. Fell asleep on the couch that night. Had a bad incident of sleep paralysis. Watched the playback a few hours later of me trying to pull myself out of it. With the night vision being engaged, it looks really creepy because eyes glow combined with the slow blinking during the event. It's like watching a zombie version of yourself. Wasn't asleep, but when I lived with my ex, we had a few security cameras and they send you alerts when there's motion detected. I was at work and got an alert that there was motion in the living room and I figured it was my ex coming home early, but I checked it anyway. Instead, I saw my dog standing in the middle of the living room staring at the wall. He stood there for a minute and then got on the sofa to sleep. Two things were terrifyingly off about that. One, my dog was a puppy at the time and was crated when home alone. The crate is made of solid wood, metal grates and has thick and heavy eye/hook latches, so there's no conceivable way he could have opened the door. 2, he was kept in the office, which is located off the hall, and we kept the door separating the living room from the hall closed during the day to keep the room cooler for him. I looked back at the recording because I was very confused, and unfortunately, because the hall door was closed, I couldn't see how his crate got opened. But the hall door opened on its own and he walked out into the living room about 30 seconds later. The hall door was like a regular bedroom door, it closed with a knob/latch and wouldn't have opened even if you pushed on it. There were no sounds aside from the normal house noises. No cars or people had been in view of the outside cameras since we'd left, and no other motion detections had went off. I wasn't asleep, but it was 1 a.m. Both my Ring cameras go off, which, because of how they're angled, means only a full-sized adult can be in my yard. I check the notification. Dude starts walking up the sidewalk to my yard, camera with floodlight kicks on, dude instantly turns around like he was mistaken and goes onto the neighbor's yard. Neither us nor the neighbor knew him. Shady. Mostly I'd just get videos of cats visiting though. Subscribe to our channel if you liked our videos. Hit the notification bell to get notified.